Most people don't call Brinnington beautiful. They call it depressed. The most depressed part of the country. A national newspaper trawled data from GPs and found nearly 24% of patients in Brinnington were depressed. Nowhere in England was more morose. Brinnington was duly labelled stigmatised, and those depression rates, they could be even higher in reality.
I would estimate, I think, that in consultations where I've reviewed a month's worth of all of the patients I see, 40 to 50% of them were coming about their depression, and maybe about 75% had a history of depression at some point in their lives.
So where better to come and road test perhaps the most exciting new frontier of mental health, technology.
So I can get about 2/3 of people who walk into my door meaningfully better. And of those, about half do what they would describe as pretty spectacularly well.
Using devices and machines to tackle depression and anxiety. A third way beyond pills and therapy, by merely stimulating bits of the brain.
There's a tremendous potential here that we don't see right now in other areas of psychiatry.
That help, whether in Brinnington or pretty much anywhere in the West, tends to come in two forms: talking cures, therapies, and pills like Prozac. But a third alternative is emerging and getting some psychiatrists cautiously excited, like Noah Phillip, Associate Professor of Psychiatry at Brown University in Rhode Island.
So usually when I see people at the beginning, they have tried many different medications and psychotherapy and it's not worked for them. Either it hasn't helped them feel better or it's caused them some pretty serious side effects. And I can tell you that people feel that there's something existentially different about using technology to help themselves feel better that's different than, for example, talking about their childhood or taking a pill.
Also excited by the potential of devices to tackle depression and anxiety is Richard Morris, Professor of Psychiatry at the University of Nottingham.
I have an interest in what are called neuromodulation treatments, and these are new ways of using magnetism and electricity. I know that a lot of doctors are quite negative about working in the health service at the moment, but in my field we have new tools, and there's a range of technologies, so it's not just one.
Noah and Richard are experts in this field, pioneers in this new approach, which essentially comes down to two types of treatment: magnetic and electrical. Okay, let's get our heads around the magnetic approach first, the more mainstream of the treatments. One that Noah Phillips uses on his patients, especially for treating depression.
So that, broadly speaking, is transcranial magnetic stimulation, where we're using a reasonably high-powered magnet turned off and on very quickly, and that's used to induce electrical activity inside of a conductive media. That's Faraday's law. And it just happens that we have some very nice conductive media between our ears.
In terms of knowing how they work, in some ways we know more about that already with magnet treatments than we do with drug treatments. The problem being that drug treatments work at a molecular level that we can't really see, whereas magnetic treatments change the magnetic connection between different parts of the brain and also have chemical effects, and it happens that it affects the chemicals that we can actually measure.
One guy in our clinic, so he's had a lot of struggles with depression, with anxiety, with feeling like he wanted to die and had tried to kill himself several times, and was in and out of various different psychiatric treatment facilities. After going through this, he actually went back to work. He was, understandably very, very happy about it, and it's the reason I do it. It does work, and it probably works even better when you combine it with other things like psychotherapy or other approaches. My hope is that this is an intermediate technology that leads to something else that's going to be better and more portable in that way. And if we really want to move the proverbial needle on mental health and really get our interventions to people who need it, then we need something that is small, inexpensive, is portable and reliable.
When I think of electricity-based treatments for mental health, I kind of have quite hideous images of Victorian treatments or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The modern day treatments, are they based in a similar principle to that, or something different?
So this is very different from old-fashioned electrical treatments, where people use the main supply to give seizures. It's a totally different level of current. It's a totally different aim of treatment. This has got nothing to do with ECT at all. It just happens to use electricity. Tiny electrical currents given when people are perfectly conscious.
Conscious and with one form of electrical treatment available on battery-powered devices the size and feel of a mobile phone. CES, Cranial Electrotherapy Stimulation, clipping electrodes to the earlobes or temples. And these machines are showing promising results for anxiety, mood and sleep. So, giant magnet in a clinic, good for depression and NICE approved, portable low-level electricity device promising for anxiety, which Richard Morris can explain.
It affects the reticular activating system, which is just a general system which controls anxiety, stress, how alert you are, and has widespread connections across the brain. It changes people from a sort of stressful rumination type thinking into more relaxed thinking through this electrical activity. The advantage of that type of electrical treatment is that people can do it in their own home. The cost of them is around £500. If you can find an hour per day to do this, then it can be an effective treatment for the most common form of anxiety. There is evidence of improvement in both anxiety and depression symptoms in people who have an anxiety disorder.
So Noah and Richard say the portable CES devices are safe and promising. As someone familiar with the joys of anxiety, I was up for giving one a go. And rude not to share this electrical love with a couple of others from my hometown, in not the cheeriest of suburbs. So back to Brennington, with a bunch of CES devices called Alpha-Stims. Fiona is the former editor-at-large of Vogue, and apparently something of a cheerleader for CES treatment.
It came into my life at a time where I just left my job and I had about 2 weeks on my own with the dogs and I couldn't get out of bed. So there I was in Cornwall with nothing else to do. So I plugged myself in. People were saying to me, I'll just take a pill or take an anti-anxiety, and I didn't want to. 4 days in, I thought, I think I feel better. But I also thought, I'm telling myself that I feel better. I'm so kind of predisposed to believe in everything from face cream to diet plan, and it always lasts, that belief, for about a week. But I stayed with it for about 4 weeks and I felt completely dramatically different. I didn't feel that kind of anxiety creeping in.
And how's your mood been in the last year?
Better when I remember to use the machine. I'm cynical about everything. I don't really believe that anything's going to have the answer. But I think that it worked for me.
But Mark, who I'd met at the coffee morning, had been using his device all this time. We spoke 6 weeks to the day after he'd begun the trial.
I've been lying on my bed and I've noticed my breathing's a bit more relaxed. I've tried meditating in the past and there's been sort of negative thoughts and things. I was thinking about nicer things, nicer memories and things during it.
6 weeks ago, Mark was barely able to leave his house. The anxiety was just too crippling.
The major thing is I have been going out doing things that I really couldn't have done before. I went on holiday, which is the first time in 10 years I've ever left the house for a long period of time. A major difference is that I can now read again in short bursts, which is phenomenal. Before I just couldn't concentrate, couldn't follow what was going on. And I have noticed from using the device that I'm sleeping less during the day.
So if you were to try and put a number on it, how much better or worse do you think your anxiety is compared to 6 weeks ago?
It's markedly better than it was. A 7 out of 10 even. I do feel much better.
What would you have been before?
Maybe a 3 out of 10, something like that, yeah.
And it's fair to say that you are using this in conjunction with medication. You're still on your pills.
Yeah. The medication was good for kind of removing the instinct to hurt myself. But in terms of improving my mood, I didn't really see any change there at all. Actual change in behaviour has come about because of this device.
These are, though, fascinating, encouraging times in the treatment of mental health. Technology, that thing which causes so much stress in modern life, might just be starting to pay us back, opening up a much-needed new frontier in our battle to feel better.